Right back here at 6. Until then, have a great night.
Calls, and one was with our federal delegation as it relates to the existing needs in the city of New Orleans and how we have been looking very closely at operations and business operations and the impact on our bottom line, meaning our operating budget for the city of New Orleans. The impacts of COVID-19, make no mistake about it, are going to leave a mark in history for the city of New Orleans. We will get through this, but how we respond to this pandemic will define who we are. My number one concern is and always has been to protect and serve the people of our city. I know a lot of our people at this time are really worried, and I understand they have a right to worry about how they're going to make ends meet. And I hear you, and I've been fighting for you, and will continue to do just that. Me along with my entire administration, and also members of your New Orleans City Council as a body. We're going to meet these needs. We are, but it's how we can get there. My goal, that we get through this and we get through it together. And it really does have an impact on, again, how we respond. Everyone needs help in getting through this, and I guess that's the most critical point. All of us will feel the impact of this. I want to share just some ways that you can access information. Right now, you can go online to ready.nola.gov and give to Greater New Orleans Foundation, the Response and Restoration Fund that we've activated with our partner, the New Orleans Business Alliance. That is up and running right now. We've seen an increase in funds going there, and we absolutely want to thank all of our partners who have stepped up thus far. The New Orleans Council on Aging is another network that you can give to. Second Harvest Food Bank is yet another, as well as the Gail Benson Community Assistance Fund. You'll learn more about other funds that will be coming online very soon. I'm fighting to help those who are leaving, and really leaving money, meaning in terms of the lack of employment. They're living paycheck to paycheck right now, but much more severity is coming with layoffs that we have seen happening throughout the city of New Orleans. But we're fighting again for those who are living paycheck to paycheck. We're fighting for SBA relief for businesses to weather through this time. And yes, that means that I'm fighting for City Hall and City Hall employees as well. Our government we're really going to need the help in responding to this pandemic. As I mentioned earlier, I've asked for the federal delegation to push for more direct individual assistance, as well as assistance for our businesses and also for city government. We know that unemployment benefits will be deployed, but those will also take time. We know that the waiver was granted to move from 21 days to 14 days, but we're pushing even to eliminate or to alleviate that period. For now, I'm calling on all of your employers, all of our employers throughout the city, to step up where you can and help as we move through this. And we're doing what we can as well as a city to ensure that they have the cash on hand to pay their people, and also for their people to stay home. What that means is that as mayor, I'm exercising my authority to lend my support for the residents and business community to offer, again, their support that's needed to their employees. In response to the COVID-19 outbreak, the city is waiving all fines and fees and interest and penalties on sales tax payments due to the city for up to 60 days. Now, for example, the deadline for February is coming up, which means March 20th. And this is set by ordinance. So we're relaxing the fines and fees and penalties associated with late payments that we do anticipate from our businesses. To do this, again, it will mean that it will impact directly the city's operating budget, but it's necessary at this time because we want to help as best as we can our businesses, both small, medium-sized, and large where it matters. Again, in addition, the city is extending the renewal period for our ABOs. That deadline is fastly approaching, meaning April 1st, and we're extending that out 30 days. It will help tremendously with our businesses as well. We're willing to do all that we can, but at the same time, we have to protect the bottom line and have enough operating cash to meet the daily needs, basic city services, and we cannot take our eye off of that, providing, again, basic city services. Businesses that have been significantly impacted or closed, such as malls, due to this, will also be a part of this amnesty program. I've relaxed what is owed to the city, and businesses must also use this as an opportunity to leverage this to empower them to help their employees the best way that they can, and that means paying their employees. I want to be clear. Businesses that are continuing to operate, such as grocery stores, should continue to remit their taxes to the city and do so on time. This is very important because as we're putting this amnesty in place, understand that the month of February that is due to be remitted to the city on the 20th of this month, that was through the period of Mardi Gras, which is always that larger month in terms of taxes and remittal for the city of New Orleans. But we feel that it's imperative that as a city we do the best that we can, again, to minimize the hit that we know that our businesses have. I'm going to ask my Chief Administrative Officer, Gilbert Montano, to come forth. He will unpack what these decisions really do mean and how they will impact the daily operations of city government. Our administration has been working diligently behind the scenes as it relates to the city's financial ship. It's so important because we have to keep city government operational. Again, basic city services. We're also looking at, as we're talking about how this will impact the city and our operations, we're looking beyond not only the next 6 months, but even the next 12 months. The impact to city government and our bottom line will be significant, and it will be felt even a year from now. You know, we can we have to keep in mind that we're still under several declarations in terms of emergency. One being the Hard Rock collapse, as well as the cyber attack that truly did disrupt how we do business as a city. And in addition to that, we have COVID-19 and then some other obligations that are on the table that we're really trying to work through. Each of these events have been significant as it relates to our financial future, meaning the city's financial future, city government's financial future. And the city is going to feel, again, this impact for months, and it could be years to come. So we have to make decisions today to ensure that we're able to operate as a city for months to come. So as you all know, February, March, and April are among the busiest times of the month for the city of New Orleans in terms of tourism, which provides a significant amount of revenue to the city coffers. Keep in mind that sales tax that are generated through business functions make up over 50% of the operating budget for the city. So we are not taking this lightly at all. This could lead into contracts being canceled. It could lead to furloughs. It could lead to layoffs related to city government and city operations. So everything is on the table at this time. And it means, again, the employees that are currently working for the city of New Orleans. So I must make decisions. I must do them with the information that I'm provided. I understand, and you should as well, that this is a very fluid situation and will continue to be. But the financial footing of this city is also the top priority, because if we cannot operate, then that means basic city services will come to a screeching halt. And that is something that I cannot and will not allow to happen. But it puts me right back into thinking about a cost reduction plan for the city of New Orleans across the board, not limited to contracts, not limited to furloughs, and not limited to layoffs. So with that, I'm going to ask Gilbert Montano to come forward as our CAO and just to take a deeper dive into some of the points that I've made previously. So thank you so much. And Gilbert, you can come on up and get me straight where you need to.
Thank you, Mayor. I think she laid it out very succinctly. The effect we're having is consequential, and it's rippling throughout the country. We were able to spend some time doing some modeling on what it means for our economy, and then isolating it specifically for the city. And as the mayor said, because of some of those numbers and trends, we're really having to make important decisions now so that we are lasting throughout this in the months and years to come, and implementing the beginnings of a cost reduction strategy. We are cognizant of the implication and the impact that the tourism community has on our overall city budget. It makes up over half the revenue, as the mayor said. And for us to balance our books accordingly, we have to start looking at the operating side and the expenditure side. We will not be able to carry out on our normal day-to-day operations as this progresses. Ultimately, what we're watching and what we're seeing, both on the trending perspective and the overall nation, is things slowing down and ultimately getting close to a grinding stop. When that happens to an economy in general, there is serious ramifications that's felt at every single level. And that's ultimately why we're having this discussion and making these decisions now, so that when we recover from this and things are back in order, we are stabilized and we have the core necessities to be able to provide from an organizational standpoint. So what does the cost reduction plan look like? That is what remains the most fluid. We're looking at everything from, as the mayor said, reducing contracts, evaluation of personnel expenses, diminishing furloughs, layoffs, everything in the book, closing facilities, looking at all the different options that we would have to look at from a government's perspective, but also making the decision that looking for the private sector to understand the importance of them not closing their business, we are waiving that period of time for fees and late and interest on the sales tax remittance. We hope that will float those organizations to be able to pay their employees, not causing further damage to our local economic perspective as we look through every single lens we possibly can. Things are, as we've always said, are happening very, very fast. We're watching them trend extremely differently, almost hour to hour, but we're staying on top of them and making sure that the decisions today matter for the decisions tomorrow, but also matter for the years to come. Making sure that we have continuity of operations and stabilized government, I think, is the mayor's most important perspective, as she just articulated, and making sure that we have and give her the tools necessary to ensure that we have long-standing government. It's a lot, and it's a lot of moving pieces, and I understand that it has ramifications far more than could be explained just at this current moment, and it's going to change through ever-going situations, but which especially want to articulate that if we don't make some of these important and drastic decisions now, it's going to hurt us so much more in the future, and making sure that we're taking it not just from a myopic perspective but a global perspective is really the position that we're coming from, to make sure that we have the cash on hand and overall analysis moving forward.
Oh, thank you, Gilbert. No, thank you very much. And I wanted to also just ask our partners with the hospitality and tourism industry who are present with us at this time to come forth and make comments as well. I have Mark Romick, who is with New Orleans and Company, and Amy Weimer with New Orleans and Company as well. They have been serving, I call them as my co-chairs of the Hospitality and Tourism Committee, that we've been having calls all week. It's been days, I've been working straight, so I don't even know my days. I wore green on yesterday, and St. Patrick's Day is today. So I said, to love on my Irish brothers and sisters, I can go for 2 days in a row and may do it tomorrow too. But without further ado, let me bring up Mark Romick, and then we'll follow with Amy at this time.
Thank you very much, Mayor. We deeply appreciate the steps that you're taking to help us sustain as much of the operations that we have in New Orleans that support the tourism economy, and of course the city of New Orleans and the Amnesty program certainly will help many organizations and try to stretch their operations and to retain as many of their employees. We have thousands and thousands of men and women that depend upon the tourism industry that are being affected as we speak. Operations are making their own decisions as how they can support, even stay in business, and anything that that we can do to keep them moving in a positive direction, because we are staying positive, and we want to see as much help as possible. So we deeply appreciate the step that you have taken to do that. We want everybody to know as well that we're working diligently to try to maintain as many of the clients that we have that had to cancel and bring them back for later in the year, and many of them are having good conversations with us where they can reschedule. So we are looking at positive horizon. At some point we'll get through this together, and we'll have this business come back to the city and to support the many needs that we have in the city that the tourism industry has helped support it over the years. With that, I would also like to mention that Stan Harris with the Louisiana Restaurant Association is working very closely with the Greater New Orleans Foundation to stand up an emergency fund for hourly workers and managers who are unable to keep their job. And more details about this will come forward in the days and a week to come. But we're trying to stand up some additional support that we can provide to the men and women that depend upon the tourism economy. We're working as well to do our own additional cuts in our operation. We're having being impacted just like everyone else, and just yesterday we had to go through a 10% cut in our operations, and more to come likely as we have to do what the mayor's going to have to do and to tighten the budget and to look forward to see where we're going to have to ensure that we can come out of this and be as strong as ever as the strong destination marketing organization that we have been. With that, I'd like to call up the chairman of the board, chairperson of the board of New Orleans and Company, Amy Reimer. Amy?
I would just continue to reiterate what both the mayor and Mark have said. This is it's been very tough for all of us, all the hotels, all the restaurants, all the destination management companies. Everybody's seeing cuts, layoffs, furloughs. Our main focus right now is to make sure that if we can furlough and to keep our employees with their benefits, that's our main focus right now. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy for the mayor. It's not going to be easy for anyone. I commend the mayor for getting this community together, our hospitality industry. She immediately reached out to us. We've been on a call twice a day with numerous emails and text messages and phone calls between all that time. We're on those phone calls. We have hoteliers, we have restaurateurs, we have the Montreal Convention Center, the gaming industry, the port, and of course all the major attractions such as the zoo. Everybody is in those calls. If they're not in the call, if they're not able to make it, with the help with the mayor's communication team, we're sending minutes as soon as those calls are over so that everybody's absolutely on the same page and we're all sending the same message. It's not going to be easy, but be rest assured, New Orleans and Company is doing all that they can to make sure that business is not lost and that it's rebooked. So thank you.
Thank you, Amy, so much. Okay, so thank you all, for being here and for allowing us to give you updates relative to the financial footing of the city and city government and businesses alike. And we'll go to questions right now, if that's okay.
This is related to city employees currently. Two parts of the question. The first being what's the status of the policy to allow city workers to work from home? Do we have any numbers on that yet? The second part of this is trying to get an update on what's being told to employees who are either have been in contact with someone who has tested positive or someone who's showing symptoms, and what employees are supposed to do if they don't have any paid time off or sick leave to stay out of work.
Well, in terms of city employees, there's been a couple of things that we've articulated. One is the civil leave through our work from home policy that has been implemented. It is on a case-by-case basis as we assess every single day. So every day more and more moving towards that with a clear articulation of what the duties are and accountability measures that speak to the work that is expected to be completed. And we have no reason to believe that it would not, be done. As it relates to our employees that are on quarantine or have tested positive, absolutely, again, the civil leave kicks in, and then, of course, the extension of sick leave, and we will assess those cases again as we need to. Some will utilize all their days, and we're wanting to make sure, as best as we can, that we are able to provide for them while they remain sick. Again, as it relates to a cost reduction plan that speaks to the city population, employment population across the board, where we're not leaving off the thought of furloughs or layoffs associated with that. Of course, if any of that is, activated, the unemployment and the unemployment insurance could kick in. Our employees would be able to apply for that. But in terms of our situation, it remains fluid every single day, and moving to have more people go towards the work from home, activate that policy. Gilbert, is there anything else I can add or you want to add? Okay.
So there's no numbers that you can provide in terms of numbers of employees who are working from home? I mean,
Well, we can give you a breakdown. I'm not going to give you, say, X, and it's about 20%.
about 20%.
But
Yeah, I mean, it varies department to department. On average, I'd probably say about 20% right now. I think as we move toward the end of the week, we're going to start driving more toward a skeleton crew. Early part of the week, it was important for us to understand our volume, what our needs were, in order to have the right people able to service the public. Now, as we have a better baseline and foundation for that, we'll be able to reassess and start working toward more of a skeleton crew and ensuring that those that can work from home are working from home, and those individuals that can't, understanding what the situation is like and finding some solution toward completion.
But civil leave is being offered currently for people who have to self-quarantine?
Yes, if there is, and this goes a lot through the Department of Health, so I don't want to get too much out of my lane, but if there is some employee that either is affected or in a close situation has been affected by the coronavirus, civil leave does apply in that regard, and I sent the policy memo related to that.
yeah, and I think we made that available to you as well. And that will go into play in terms of civil leave that's already activated. And absolutely, for those employees that are on quarantine and or have tested positive, which they're on quarantine as well.
Yeah.
And that number grows as well, still fluid.
A couple questions on the sales tax budget issues. One, are there any projections as to how much the city is expected to get for the next 60 days of sales tax? Any projections of how much the city has spent on the response so far? And are there going to be any measures taken to make sure that the businesses who have been affected and are using that money for workers or other necessary costs rather than just pocket?
Well, I mean, I hate to kind of use your terminology because I'm not looking negative about this. We're looking positive. So I'm not being negative at all and thinking that our businesses, our employers will not do the right thing. This is all with the expectation that they will do the right thing, that absolutely they need this amnesty, and it will help them not only stay open, but understanding at the same time, not all businesses are created equal or will be able to stay open. So factoring in all of these matters, the need for an amnesty to me just speaks to me very loud and clear, but not through the lens of being negative. And there's no tracking mechanism that is in place to determine or to say, you know, you need to keep X amount of employees, you know, employed and the like. It's just an overall amnesty, and with the hope that they will do the right thing. And I have no reason right now to believe that they will not. As it relates to, you said, I'm trying maybe paraphrasing here, in regards to the overall impact. I said that the sales tax from the industry makes up about, from businesses period, makes up about 50% of our operating budget. Our burn rate just on is about 40 million when we think about even a month. So we have to do the math. It's fluid every single day, but this is millions that we expected to receive. I want to say over 50, huh? What was it?
Well, just February alone, it gives us enough cash for 2 months.
Right, so, but that's that February, which would be due on the 20th of this month, that would allow the city to operate up to 2 months. So it's pretty significant.
That's based primarily on Mardi Gras.
Absolutely being, and Mardi Gras just historically, with regardless of if it falls in February or if it falls in March, the month where it falls is the largest, you know, influx of cash or, you know, volume for the city, as well as businesses throughout the city.
It's been reported that Orleans Parish is kind of a hotspot for the virus outbreak. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that hotspot, I don't know what you mean by that, but in terms of cases, we're leading the state of Louisiana in the cases, which continues to be consistent from hour to hour as more test results come in. What that means to me is absolutely advocating at every single level, one, the state and the federal level, about the needs of the city of New Orleans and the economic impact that it will have, the negative impact that this COVID-19 is and will continue to have on the city of New Orleans and the population of people that we serve. And so with that, having some of the highest levels of disparities in the state of Louisiana speaks to, one, the need for Orleans to get our fair share, not just at the state level, but as we push at the federal level, for FEMA assistance, for disaster CDBG, for SBA assistance for our small businesses, for DSNAP, for WIC, you know, thinking about our moms, our pregnant moms. It really goes deep. And we understand that the largest bucket of resources to flow would come from the federal government. And so that was the need for that delegation call that I was on prior to coming out here, and also why we have just been pretty steadfast of doing our due diligence to communicate with our federal leadership since we got into this situation, and we'll continue to do that. I am hopeful. I understand that the first phase of a package has passed out of the House, is going to the Senate. They're working on that now. That's I'm told about $8 billion. They're working on a second package where a dollar amount is not very clear, but it's in the realm of about 20 billion. I'm told that there will be a phase 3 to that where they're looking in the trillions. So we just have to continue to articulate the needs of the city of New Orleans, which is our job, which is my job, to our state and federal partners. The city of New Orleans has also submitted to GOSEP, you know, the documentation needed that identifies clearly the needs of our city, and that's following the protocols that are in place for all municipalities to follow by the state guidelines, and at the same time as they articulate or convey our local needs to the federal government as well.
One or two more questions, WDSU.
My questions kind of go into what you just said. Is there, on a state and federal level, the possibility of assistance after this happens to help the city itself continue operation once this is all?
That was absolutely one of my asks. Conveying clearly the economic impact that COVID-19 has and will have on the city of New Orleans, being one of the cities that's a driver in the country as it relates to tourism and being a destination city. So 18 million visitors. We know that right now our occupancy is at 8%, which we have no reason to believe that it will not go below 8%. But it clearly conveys the situation that we're in, but the situation that is growing by the day, and the real impact it will have on our businesses. My number one focus there on that call was the businesses and, of course, the residents impacted by the lack of those business operating.
And to kind of follow up into that one as well, just more forgiving my thumbs being funny. With cost reduction, when will the cost reduction plan go into effect if approved? And what does it go with? What's the process?
Well, the process is me getting with my top leadership, and that means my CAO and my CFO. That's right here, and us drilling down and looking from department to department, of course not leaving out our directors that are over these departments, but looking at essential services. And essential services, meaning city government services, will be the top priority. Of course, public safety, right? Areas that we will not, we do not want to cut on the front end, but everything is on the table. But as we go down the list of essential services and what that means to not only to the city, but basic city services that we can extend to the public, that's where our decisions will be made. Looking at the end of the day, the bottom line, even as it relates to one-time money that we have, how do we use that one time? One time is one time. So you can't look to spend that so quickly, because we have to forecast 6 months, the next 12 months. And even when we stand up as a city and as a community, the community is going to need city government to operate in order for them to function. So again, we can't look at, have tunnel vision here. We don't have the luxury. We have to look at the full picture. And so when we are making these decisions, and I have to make them, there'll be some rationale behind them, and we'll be able to provide you with that. But we're looking at everything, but it's all in line with essential city services. Also, as it relates to these infrastructure projects that we have underway, that's tied to already federal dollars that are on deadline, that we have to spend. And if we slow down with the activity, that could have an impact on the city of New Orleans losing those dollars for infrastructure. Now, a part of my asks, of course, to the federal government has been, waivers associated with the approvals that we've already received from this federal government to do these projects like the joint infrastructure work. So we're looking at everything, but at the same time, we are building in safeguards the best that we can, because the impact is and will be significant, especially tied to federal dollars that we have already, that have already been allocated for us to use towards infrastructure. And with hurricane season coming on up right now, this is also how we're looking at the Sewage and Water Board in terms of our employees there. And so, again, we're looking at the whole picture. And we have essential personnel that we will need, which is a large portion on the Sewage and Water Board side, that we have to be ready just in the event of a rainfall. So we're looking at everything. I know that was long, but it's a lot.
WWL, last question.
Yes, ma'am. How would this affect like parking enforcement, towing, general services like that within the city?
Well, of course, we've relaxed, in terms of course, the school isn't in session. We've made sure, hey, that stuff is cut off, right? No one is carrying an added burden that they just don't need, or in my opinion, that they do not deserve. But as it relates, it's people heeding the calls. But right now, we've been very laxed in terms of those levels of enforcement. One example is code enforcement hearings, like those administrative hearings that have come to a screeching halt. And that has not only an impact on our residents, but also on the bottom line for the city. So we're moving through it the best, that we can. We really are. Anything to add from that perspective, Gilbert, or even Norman? But I mean, it is what it is. We're working through it, and it's absolutely fluid. Any other things I need to clarify that you would add?
Sure. I
Come on.
think what's vital is those companies and businesses that are not significantly affected by the COVID-19 issue pay their taxes and pay their taxes on time. The organization, the city organization, and many other governments throughout the country, we're bleeding costs right now, and we're all trying to figure out and maintain stability both now and in the future, and making sure that those agencies and individuals that are able to pay the businesses, grocery stores, things that are doing well during this period, pay your taxes on time. It's vital for our core function of services. And as far as the cost reduction plan, that has to also be very fluid. There's methodologies on how you do this, but what is so unique about this particular pandemic is we don't know the end of it. So it's hard to predict where we're going to be or where we're going to go or what we're going to have to do without having a finite period to look toward. And so that is where has us rewriting the book and writing the book across the country to figure out how to manage through this terrible time.
Yeah, and what I'll add, Mark, being the good steward that he is for the industry, and I agree with this. I actually did it myself not too long ago going over to Ken. But call your favorite restaurant and make an order. And as Councilmember Williams said on yesterday, tip and tip and keep on tipping. The best that we can do as being those good stewards. But call on your favorite restaurant and order. And it's something that we're doing right here within City Hall. My lunch is waiting for me right now. I'm trying to get to it. But with that, thank you again. We will come back with more updates. And we just appreciate you at this time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Gilbert has a second.
Gilbert.
Jeff Allison has a second. He just wants to know the time frame for cost cutting.
Okay. So that's being evaluated now, and I think we announced earlier in the week we froze spending.
Right, right.
And so now it just carries into more of the contractual services, and then you start looking at your personnel. So I mean that it happened. We've been very forward in making decisions very quickly. We'll be one of the first cities, I think, out there that is making these cost-cutting measures right now. Most should be, because they're going to have that effect. If you just look at the national trending, we've had to do manual calculations because of the cyber attack, but we didn't want to. That was vital. But if you're looking at any kind of microeconomic perspective, this is where we'll be. The decisions right now are going to be vital, and you'll probably see many other cities making the same cost-cutting effort and measures coming.
Yeah, and even considering, the burn rate. Like, for example, for COVID-19, we're already at $500,000.
Well, we've spent $500,000. We've encumbered close to $1 million, and that doesn't include personnel.
At all.
What do you mean when you say encumbered? What does
We
that
haven't written the
entail?
check. We've
okay.
paid $500,000 out of cash. We'll have to pay. We're getting close to $1 million was the last number that will have to be paid, and then of course that doesn't include personnel costs. That's just
Right. And then that's on top